You? Two from Green?
Why don't you raise your hand?
Okay. What department you work in?
Special products.
Okay.
Annual.
Okay.
There's a lot to read.
You? Okay.
I've got about 8 hours a week.
Pretty good.
Still do? Yeah.
Those that weren't here
I need to
last
get this
year,
insurance and go
we've
on.
done this, I guess, pretty consistently probably the last 4 or 5 years, I guess. I've been involved. My name is Darren Cherrick. I'm with Robertson Ryan, the insurance agency that works very closely with Grover Corporation. We also have insurance companies that we work with. A lot of my counterparts may visit, like the Texas facility, as well as come out here periodically. The insurance company just recently changed as of, I want to say, the 5th of May, maybe the 7th of May. We used to be with Chubb. Now we're with CNA for some of the coverages. Not that that means anything to anyone in here other than that as far as if there's any claims, as far as how they're processed, will be with a different insurance company. We may see some loss control representatives come in to get a better feel for what our business is in the near future. I think one might have been just here too. Don, did you meet with the new insurance rep?
No, I have not.
Okay. CNA. I just got a letter, so I'll talk to you about some of the recommendations I followed from that. We've got the next couple hours from what I understand. Hopefully it's not too painful. I think we've kind of been through this drill, those that were here the last few years. Try to make it interactive, try to make it obviously worth our while. So if you have questions as we go through this, let's make sure we bring them up. I'll provide an update on some of the loss activity that we've seen in the last 12 months. We'll also talk a little bit about what's new with OSHA out there. We'll talk a little bit about existing OSHA compliance type programs that we have in place. And again, as I mentioned, if you have questions, concerns as we go through that, make sure you let us know. I also, I guess, a couple weeks ago did a little facility walkthrough. So I've got some pictures that we'll review. Very similar to other years, always looking for opportunity. And that really is what this meeting is about. It's not looking at a picture and saying, hey, why did we do it this way, or placing blame or pointing the finger. It's finding out how we can enhance and impact our safety culture moving forward. Fair enough? Okay? Everybody that's going to be here is here.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Physically.
The agenda as far as today, introductions I went through already. Second piece that I want to get into would be taking a look specifically again at the workers' comp exposures, what we've seen in the past 12 months, OSHA activity. Hopefully we recognize some of these programs. I would hope we all understand what a forklift is. Not that we're all certified to operate a forklift, but we'll talk about some of the hazards that are associated with that. Hazard communication, that's our chemical safety program. There's a new program being rolled out as we speak with OSHA. It's called the GHS program. Has anybody ever heard of that? It's a global harmonization system. You want a chair? We'll talk about what that means for us as employees, the old hazard communication program versus the new GHS program. We have to complete training by the end of 2013. So that will be talked about. What's LOTO?
Lockout tag.
Lockout tagout, right? How many in here perform lockout tagout procedures? Mostly the maintenance employees a lot of times, setup personnel possibly. You said you do?
All personnel with their machines are supposed to lock it out if it's an unsafe thing. We have locks on the front here, so everybody should be able to lock out their machine. Everybody was trained, but just to remind everybody, there's locks in the main aisle here. If you have a machine where it's dangerous and you feel it's unsafe, lock it out. I'm the only one that has a key, me and Mark. And actually, I don't even think you have a key for it, do you, for the locks?
Okay. So we'll talk a little bit about that and the purpose behind that program. Reporting of injuries, an area hopefully we do not have to address much, but if we had an injury or an accident in the workplace, it's very important we all know what to do. Because if we don't have the insurance company involved immediately, There's bills that start adding up. Where do we go with that? How do we follow up with corrective action? We want to make sure we bring the employee who's injured back to work. We want to get the appropriate care as necessary. So we'll talk about some of those steps. Emergency preparedness. Where do we go if we have a fire? Do we have a meeting spot? Get the heck out of the building, right? Hopefully our exits are clear, right? To maintain that accessibility at all times. What about a tornado? Where's our shelter areas? Talk a little bit about those things. Anybody know what PPE is? Okay, what's required here? Anything? Glasses and earplugs? Okay.
Leather shoes.
All employees, every day wear the plugs and the glasses? Or is it specific areas? Wherever we're at, production? Annual exams, are we doing that? Testing, ears?
Yes, we do that.
That's coming up?
Yep, coming up.
Okay. So we'll be having the mobile van usually comes in?
Yes.
Okay, so that'll be coming down the road here. BVP, another one, let's see if you know that one. Bloodborne pathogens, very good.
That's coming up in June.
You doing some formal training?
Yes, we are.
Okay. Do we have first aid or first responders in here?
We have a few.
Okay.
And we are gonna make the training next month for the new team.
Yes.
Excellent. Good, so you'll learn more about that as well at that time. But that's definitely a program you need to take serious. The old days where we used to just jump in and help when there was blood exposed, those days are gone. You have to protect yourself with gloves. And we want to obviously still assist from an emergency standpoint, but we also don't want to have any bloodborne diseases come in contact with us. So good to hear you're going to be having that coming up. Anybody remember the Safety Jeopardy game? It's kind of fun. We ask some questions, work together with it. I've got a couple different variations from the last few years that we've done this. It'll be interesting to see how much we do remember. And then obviously any questions or concerns that you may have, let's make sure we talk about it. If you're thinking about it but you're afraid to ask, don't be afraid. If you have a thought about a safety suggestion or an opportunity, more than likely someone else in the room has that too. Some of these topics that I'll be discussing may generate some questions, so just feel free to let me know. Okay? Sound good? All right, let's take a look here. All right. The history. Lights on here. Everybody see that all right, or do you
The
want
light
to wait?
switch is back there, Dennis.
See if that does any better, Dennis. No sleep. The better? Good. As I've shared in other years, here's the history specifically looking at workers' comp, okay? For those that may be a little bit unclear on what workers' comp insurance coverage is all about, if you are injured on the job as an employee and you need to seek medical treatment, that would fall under these numbers, okay? So if we take a look, we are in now the current new policy period. Remember I talked about CNA? That's simply the new insurance company that we're working with. That's the carrier that is responsible now. If we have injuries on the job, they will make the payments. Prior to that, it was Chubb, okay? We started the new policy 5/7 of 2013, so we're just, a few weeks into it. Here's where we ended up from last year. And before we do that, does anybody have any idea how many claims we have? Both locations, Texas and Wisconsin. How many claims do you think we had that were reported to the insurance company?
9.
You got it. You're paying attention on that, right? 9 claims. Do you think that was higher than the prior year? Or lower?
Lower.
Why would that be? Any thoughts? The frequency was increased. We look at these numbers. We had 4 in 2011, 3 in 2010. We're kind of going the wrong direction.
Where were the claims low? Here or there?
We'll see that. Good question. But this can be concerning because the more claims we have, the greater potential one of us in the room could be injured or one of those statistics, right? So has the process changed? Have we added new equipment? Maybe we removed equipment? sometimes with additions or with, you know, the business growing, that brings in new exposures for all of us and what we do day in and day out. Are there any thoughts in the last 12 to 18 months why we're seeing more of an increase with some of the claims that have been reported? There's no right or wrong answer, I'm just asking for.
Hired more people.
Okay, so we've hired more people, definitely could have an impact. More whips, I don't know about that. PPE, selection of what type of PPE we're using. If we've hired more employees, there could be definitely an increased risk of an injury because we have more people doing more jobs. However, if the exposure doesn't change though, if it's the same jobs we've been doing for the last 25 years, and we've been safe with, let's say, just for example, 50 employees, now we have 65, should it really make a difference with the injuries? Well, depending on the type of employees we may be hiring, could have a direct correlation. Depending on the type of training we're doing with the new employees, could have a direct correlation. Any other thoughts? Good point about new employees being on board. Do you think we've done a better job the last year to year and a half with education and training to make sure if we are involved in an injury at work, no matter how small it may be, that we report it? Maybe we didn't before. Just a thought. Possibly. Okay. So if we look at those 9 claims, the policy that just ended a couple weeks ago, the total incurred loss is about $60,300. There's still some money out here. We call that the reserves. That's what the claim is expected to cost. The insurance company, being Chubb, hasn't paid all that money out because there's still some activity with that claim, and it's not quite closed out at a full release or end of healing. So our premium was $86,000. We've spent $60,000. How does that compare to other years? What was the highest number on there, isn't it? Okay. The prior year was just under 18,000. 4 claims. The year before was just under 10,000. So you can see, as the claim count rises, the dollars typically follow suit. Makes sense. The more claim you have, more claim activity you have, typically the more expense we're going to have as a company. Okay. Here's another example of just showing the years since 2009. We'd like to see the pattern go just the opposite. Part of the reasoning of getting together in meetings like this is, first, management is committed to talk about safety and make sure that it is important. We also need to brainstorm ideas and find out if we're continuing to spend more and more money on the cost of insurance, it can definitely hurt us from a marketing standpoint with the competition out there, getting new jobs and pricing. If there's things we can do to prevent loss, obviously that's our biggest gain. Okay, here's an interesting slide. We have what I refer to as a lag time analysis by state. So the breakdown, you're going to see Texas and Wisconsin. Does anybody remember what lag time means from last year? Or is the term that you know of? Lag time is really when the date the injury occurs here to when we get the paperwork into the insurance company. It's that measurement of time that these numbers are going to reflect. So would you think the longer it takes to get the claim in, again, it's going to be more expensive or less expensive? Who says more? Who says less? More, okay? The longer a claim takes, typically the studies are showing it's going to cost us more. It makes sense. We want the details immediately. We don't want to wait 3-4 months and find out that, boy, now we have to do all this backtracking. So, as an average, 5 claims we've had here. So there's your answer. How many claims have we had in Wisconsin last year? 5 out of the 9 came from here. Total cost, does anybody remember what the total cost of the claims were? 60? How many do we have in Wisconsin? 5 for 53. Majority of the dollars have come out of this location. The number that I want to focus on is what we refer to as that lag time. That's the time it's taking to get the reports in. Whether it's the employee not reporting it when the injury occurs, whether it was a supervisor that maybe sat on it intentionally, not intentionally, didn't get around to sending it in. It could be a combination, but the message here is we have some opportunity. When should we report a claim?
Immediately.
Immediately. Makes sense, probably within the same day at least. It would be immediately, not 10 days later. Supervisors have a responsibility to get that stuff into the insurance company. The insurance company can't help us until they generate a claim number. The bills can't be paid. There can't be a nurse case manager assigned, so we have some opportunity there that we'll definitely address, that can save us some money as well. Okay? Here's Texas. Lag time there, 2.75, so they're doing definitely a better job for reporting. Still opportunity. What's the goal? Where would we like to see that number? 0 would be ultimately the best. The insurance companies like the scale between 0 and 3 days they're comfortable with. They also have a legal responsibility. If they don't make payment to an employee that's off of work in a timely fashion, they get fined from the state of Wisconsin as well. So there is a push and there is definitely a focus that we have to do our best to get the reports in as soon as they occur. Okay? So the 4 claims just under $7,000. Where are the claims coming from? I don't know if this surprises us at all. Strains are the leading lost driver from a cost standpoint and the total claim count. 6 of them. It's averaging about $10,000, a little over $10,000 a claim. 10.5 or so. Strain related. Most common for a lot of the industries that we work with, it's because of the manual labor that's involved in the type of work and duties that you perform every day. There's pushing, there's pulling, there's lifting, there's turning, twisting. All of that can lead to soft tissue muscle injury. And those are the ones that are obviously the longest to rehab. It takes some time. So with that time, obviously the cost can add up very quickly. What about foreign bodies to the eyes? We've had 6 of those too. The cost has been pretty minimal.
Has that been here or Texas?
That's a combination, actually. I would have to break it down. I know there's at least 3 that were here in the last year and a half. Yep. There's one just as last year. The employee did have glasses on. Something got in the eye after. But, you know, we always look at what we can do different. How can we impact these losses? You know, it'd be easy if we said, well, those 6 claims, none of them involved employees wearing glasses. Well, what do? Maybe we should try the glasses. I don't think it was that simple with these examples where, you know, maybe it was a metal chip or a fragment or a piece of material. A lot of times if you have a hat on, you move your hat, you have a little speck in your hair, now it dribbles down behind your glasses. If it gets in your eye, you can't get it out, you still need to go get medical treatment. You know, we had one of those for sure like that. We just don't want that big one. You know, if we have the little ones, the big one's gonna come, it's a matter of time. It's kind of the proven data we see. Anybody have any comments on glasses? We're pretty good about wearing our glasses, aren't we? I think every time I've walked through, I've never had a problem with finding employees not having glasses on. Forklifts, parking brakes, different story. We'll talk about that. Contusions was another area. 3 contusions for 21,000. A couple cuts. We had a chemical exposure. Texas, Wisconsin. So this man's. Foreign bodies in Texas. Oh, it's the one. That one is, okay, that's the one I was thinking from this last policy period. So we've had 6 of the foreign bodies. A couple years back, Texas was hit. $2,000 roughly, compared to the one we've had here for about $1,000. This is pretty consistent though, isn't it, the strains? We're doing some lifting here. What's our maximum weight requirement for lifting? Do we have one? 50 pounds?
Yeah.
I thought it was
Was that part of
70.
your new employee orientation, do you remember?
They should change it to 90.
They should change it to 115, because that's what the new Pentatech tubes are coming in at.
It's a good point. We're gonna have a
Way more
challenge,
than
it sounds
me.
like, coming up. You lift the 90 pounds every day?
Yeah,
What-
multiple times.
What are you lifting? What is it? Is there a specific example? What's
Well,
the product?
each tube, what are we weighing at?
Well,
90
the smaller, if it's under 7 inches, it's weighs like 98 pounds, and if it's over, it weighs like 100,
And
115.
depending on the job, I guess it's kind of hard to tell you how many I lift a day, but.
Yeah, plus.
They're
I don't know
heavy.
if we'll uncover the answer today necessarily, but I think obviously that's something to look at. Can we do anything from a mechanical means? Do we have an overhead hoist? Do we have a jib crane? Forklift assistance, 2 people versus 1 person? There's probably some things that we can highlight. But yeah, that's a lot of weight. That's definitely a lot of weight. And you hit it on the head earlier, 50 pounds is really what OSHA looks at. They want a 50-pound maximum lift. They consider 50 pounds kind of that benchmark where it's still safe, as long as the technique is good. As soon as you get over the 50 pounds, you start jeopardizing the potential of you being injured on the job. So it increases. So that's why we want to look at different ways. You know, UPS, everybody knows what UPS is. They used to have the 100-pound lifting requirement. If you couldn't do 100 pounds, you weren't going to be an employee there. They've scaled that back. I think they're at 75 pounds now. Other than them, in the industry, it's pretty much a flat 50 pounds is what everybody shoots for. Now, you bring that concern into the healthcare industry, there's not a lot of 50-pound humans out there that the nurses or, you know, a lot of the CNAs can transfer from the bed to the toilet or the wheelchair or wherever. That's a challenge right now in the healthcare industry because it's awkward with a lot of the transfers and the weights of the patients, the clients that they're working with. So we have a different situation. We're in a 4-walled facility, and there may be some things we can look at from a mechanical means to transport or lift or move some of these heavier products. Is this something new that's coming, or it's been here?
No, it's been here.
You mentioned, is there a new one that you're gonna be?
Well, no, they're not new, but they've always been, the Pentatech ones have always been heavy, but lately it seems like some of them come in that are that, the walls are that thick on them, and they're just, like the ones I lifted yesterday. They're insane.
Didn't you say something about there's 100, whatever it was, 100 and some pounds?
Some of them are 115 plus,
Okay.
easily.
I think the average.
And not even that, but like dumping chip buckets for CCBs, we weighed one of them, it's 85 pounds.
Okay. They have a handle on them?
Yep.
Okay. So at least there's some leverage there, you know, go all the way down to the ground. But yeah, there's some things we should probably look at from a material handling standpoint. And that's where we'd want to focus. Where are the top hitters, you know, what are the big, the heaviest weights we're dealing with? And then kind of break that down. Yes.
Is it, let's say, there's tubes that I know I can't lift, but I have to cut them in half. Is it a safety issue if I were to lift those tubes up with a forklift, so they're closer to my waist, so it's easier on my back, or is that a no-go? to
It's a
use
great
forklift?
question. Depends which OSHA inspectors here, if they ever would see that.
Well, cause I got not yelled at, but kind of talked to about
The
it.
challenge is, when you're on a forklift and you remove yourself, when you get off of the lift, you lose control of the hydraulics, raising and lowering the mast. What OSHA wants you to do, if you're gonna do something like that, to make sure you have an operator on the lift, so they're in control of raising and lowering that load. That's in a perfect world. We can't always have someone just sitting in a forklift while we're doing work for hours at a time in front of them. What they recommend then is if you have some type of a platform, a table, a steel bench, whatever it is, if those forks can rest on there and hold up the weight of the forklift, then you would be in compliance. So to answer your question, is it a blanket yes or no? It depends on the situation. You know, I've got employees that I've seen where they'll lift a pallet and they've got to move the boxes off the pallet. So they'll lift it up to the comfortable, you know, waist level. They'll do what they have to do, and then they'll get back on the lift and take it to somewhere else. Now, the general rule is this 25 feet or more away from the lift. there will be some leeway there with an inspector if we're within that 25 feet. As soon as you extend away from 25 feet from the lift, they say it's unattended, now those forks need to be on the ground regardless. So it's kind of a gray area. I understand what we're doing, you're trying to save your back, you know, it makes sense.
I mean, I'm less than a foot away from the forklift, it's not like I'm running back and forth, you know.
Right? We can take a look at that too. You know, there's some general, you know, bullet points that I'd just like to make sure that we're complying with if we're doing that on a regular basis. But good point. Anybody else have anything they want to bring up as material handling? Okay. So this is the history. We've spent in Wisconsin about $82,000 on losses since 2009. We lost my little light. And then we have about 85 up in Texas. Claim count 10 here, a lot more expensive, 8 there. So they're averaging about $1,000 a claim, 1,000 whatever. And what are we averaging? 8,000. So depending on the nature of the injury, obviously, is going to impact the cost of the loss. This slide here is showing the types of claims. Yeah, I'll keep this as simple as possible. But when your claims are reported, they're valued at a certain weight. And that is determining at the end of the year what your future premium is going to be from the insurance perspective. There's 3 factors that go into this formula. One of them is the payroll that we have. How many employees we have here dictates whether our payroll is going to go up or down. The second piece of it is the class of business we're in. What do we do for work? There's rates that are assigned to that class of business that changes every year depending on what's going on with the loss activity. The third piece of it is the losses, which is what we can control. If you have a loss, it falls into one of these 3 categories: severity, frequency, or medical only. Does anybody remember what these terms mean? Medical only would be, I go to the doctor, I'm injured at work, I can come back to work without losing any time. A severity claim would be, I go to the doctor, doctor says you cannot come back to work for 10 days, so now I have lost time. Severity would be if the total claim count or claim cost is greater than $5,000. The frequency is the same thing, I can't come back to work, but the claim cost is only going to be, I shouldn't say only, but it's going to be under 5,000. Okay, so we didn't have any frequency. We had one severity, that was the cost, and we had several of the medical onlys.
So in 2010 was our last lost time injury. Correct? Is that
Yeah.
was this period?
Yep. I think if I recall, one of my slides from the past, I want to say it was like 933 days we went without a lost time up until 5/10 of 2010, somewhere right in there. So what does that mean? When we look at this, this shows if we went 3 years in a row, and I didn't share that, but that's, again, part of the formula, it's 3 years of history with your losses, excluding the most recent year. So we just ended this last year. Those numbers are not in our future until next year's premium. There's always a year in waiting. So what this 7.5 means, the benchmark is 1.0. If we're under, we're doing better. If we're over, we're paying more for our insurance. If we went 3 years in a row with no loss activity or minimal loss activity, that'd be the best we can be. We're at a 0.84, not very far away. We're close. And here's what the severity claim impact is and the medical only claim. So one of those severity claims is costing this number here 5.3 points. And the 7, medical only, where we go to the doctor, we can come back to work, are only impacting us at 3 points. So you can see the difference there. From a dollar standpoint with our premium, the 1.0 is the competition. Everybody else out there doing the same thing we do. Their premium is here, just under 100,000. Our premium is here. So we're getting a $15,000 savings, which is good news. That's what we want. We could get another almost $9,000 savings if we ever reached our minimum amount of the 0.75. Make sense? Questions? I just share the financial piece of it because I think it's important. A lot of times, we don't realize how costly claims can be and how they impact the bottom line dollar of all of us. Not just the owner of the company, or that's just the cost of doing business. This impacts all of us. If we spend more money on the insurance costs every year, there's not gonna be money left available, whether it's merit increases, performance reviews, new equipment we have to get in-house, forklift we've been waiting to receive or purchase. Makes it very difficult when we're spending extra money on the cost of insurance. So here's the percentages. Strains and contusions are making up our current experience run, most of it. Wisconsin versus Texas, 15% coming from Texas, 85 coming here. Where do you think we're gonna focus our time? Texas?
Yeah.
Both of them. Do we have more exposure here than Texas? The operation's totally different? I've never been to Texas, I don't know.
No, we have less people actually in Texas.
We have lots of people.
We have a lot of people, probably, it's probably 4 times. We have.
Sort of the numbers, are they concerning you all?
people in Texas? No, we have more people than this.
We have.
We have more people than.
Okay.
I'm sorry. We have more people here in Wisconsin.
And as far as quantity of work, the pieces that we do 3 pieces in order, we might do 500.
Okay.
So I mean, I think that's.
So it makes sense, our exposure here would be greater than what we have there.
The parts must be bigger than us.
Well,
Yeah.
you only do 50, you only do 50, not
Yeah, let's keep it at a minute.
We know that.
Okay? So that was the numbers piece of that. What I'd like to do is talk a little bit about just general safety and ask you all some questions, and then just see where the responses are, and we'll get into some of the Jeopardy questions. Again, we kind of reviewed if we had the injury, we all need to be comfortable and aware that you report immediately to who? Supervisor. There's gonna be some paperwork that needs to be filled out, that needs to be sent into the insurance company. And then obviously our main concern, the priority, is to do the appropriate treatment you need from the physician. So with that, let's say you had some restrictions, you come back to work, say it's a 10-pound lifting restriction. Reminder to make sure you stay within that restriction. Don't be lifting up to 80, 90 pound, whatever we were referring to. The restrictions are intended for you to understand, number one, and then comply with. They also need to apply at home as well, okay? So it's not just at work, because the injury happened at work doesn't mean that the restrictions don't apply at home. It's a 24/7 until those restrictions are relieved, okay? If you're struggling with the restrictions, with the work we're doing, make sure you voice that to your supervisor. Very, very important. We can't read your body. You guys know your body better than anybody else. So if there's complications, make sure you let us know so we can work within the restrictions or find something that makes sense for you to do. Okay? Where do we go for clinic appointments? Anybody know? Any options? St. Luke's is right down the road, right? We have an October? Concentra?
Yep.
Okay. Do we have signs posted for that?
Yep.
Okay.
Red phone.
The advantage of Concentra, something like a Concentra or an occupational health clinic, they understand our operations, they know what we're up against. They know the light duty situations, and they'll work with you to make sure we can get you back to work sooner than later, so you don't lose out on lost wages. It's a win-win for both, the employee that's injured as well as the employer. So that's why we partner with those health clinics. Anybody want to bring up anything else on reporting of injuries? We do have accident investigation forms. That's important that we fill those out. The most important thing that I believe on there is the corrective action. Make sure that we're looking at preventative techniques. What are we doing different to prevent this from reoccurring to another employee? If we don't learn from it, that exposure is still going to exist. So remember that. Okay, let's talk a little bit about forklift safety. How many forklift operators in here? Okay. You guys all been trained? Who did the training? Mr. Graham?
I guess that would be me.
And you know how long ago it was? Roughly.
Little more than a year.
Okay. Anybody greater than 3 years? OSHA changed the standard a few years back. Every 3 years, you're mandated to go through a refresher type training now. So if it's getting close to that, let's make sure we get you in for a follow-up session. Those that are not forklift operators, let's talk about this a little bit. What are some of the concerns we have out on the production floor with some of the operators? Maybe there isn't. They drive beautiful all the time. Perfect. Some of the
Speed.
common ones I hear is lack of
Speed.
horns, speed, okay? Sometimes going a little too fast, maybe we think, you're going around that corner pretty quick, we're all busy. We all know we're busy, we understand that. But don't be in such a hurry that it causes an unsafe behavior or an act. Go too fast around a corner and you have a load and that load tips over, hopefully it's not falling on something. So speed, watch our speed. You know, those lifts do have governors on them, but we don't know how fast. Is he going 10 miles an hour, 12 miles an hour? Use your best judgment, okay? Any other concerns with the forklifts?
Not looking behind you when
Not looking behind you when
you're going backwards.
you're going backwards, okay?
Just go backwards and then just flip it forward and really not pay attention.
Okay. Do we have backup alarms?
Well,
We
no,
do.
Yeah, they do.
On the red one.
We have 2 lifts, right? Okay. Backup alarm helps, but still, make sure you're using your horn a lot to let employees know. When is the only time we should be backing up with the lift, other than getting out of the area? With a load on, I should say.
You can't see over the load.
When you can't see, when you have an obstructed view in front of you, you go in the reverse direction. That's really the only time you should be doing that, unless you turn it on and so forth. What I saw, what I witnessed when I came through, we'll see in some pictures, there was those little levers you pull on the forklift. Do we know what those are? When we're supposed to get off of them? Brakes and brakes.